Mansa Musa was the ruler of the Mali Empire in early 14th century, and he was no backwater baron. Thanks to salt, gold, and copper, he had untold, incalculable, immeasurable wealth. Some historians even say that he was the richest man in history. But you know what they say? More money, more juicy gossip. When Mansa Musa went to Mecca, he brought billions of dollars in gold. He gave most of it away, but this had devastating and unforeseen consequences. Stick around for more on that later. Nobody knows exactly when Mansa Musa was born, or more specifically, when he was minted like a $400 billion coin. However, some records suggest he was a young man by 1324. His father's name was Fagal, and his mother may have been a woman named Kangu. Regardless, he was definitely close to power. His father Fagal was the son of Abu Bakr, who was himself the brother of Sununata, the legendary founder of the Mali Empire that made Musa the great-nephew to the ruling family. So no one ever expected him to rise to power. Mansa Musa rose to power in the year 1312 or so, we believe. Historical sources differ on when and how exactly Musa snagged his golden crown. What's clear is that his path to the throne was unconventional and perhaps not entirely above board. According to Musa himself, his rise to power and virtually limitless wealth was entirely innocent. He claimed that his predecessor launched 2 massive expeditions into the Atlantic Ocean, the first voyage consisting of 200 ships, the second comprising of 2,000. On the second voyage, the Mansa went personally, leaving Musa behind as acting ruler of the empire. He wouldn't be acting for long. Musa gives a perfectly believable account of what happened next. He claimed that when the reigning Mansa failed to return from his voyage of sea, Musa officially took the crown. His ascension shifted power from Sunjata's descendants to the branch of the royal family descendant from Sununata's brother, Abu Bakr. Modern historians have cast doubt on Musa's breezy, coincidental tale of ascension. Sure, he said he just stepped in when the last guy vanished at sea, but let's be honest, that sounds suspiciously convenient. Some scholars believe that Musa didn't just inherit power, he seized it. According to this version, the Atlantic voyage story was just a royal cover-up, a tidy way to explain away a less-than-legit transfer of power. After all, there was a vast fortune at stake. Despite this skepticism, Musa's account of a transatlantic expedition gone horribly wrong isn't entirely unbelievable. Regardless of how he came to power, Musa did ultimately become the ruler of the Mali Empire. By the time he ascended to the throne, he wasn't some wise old king with a gray beard and a battle-worn crown. He was a young man, maybe even in his early 20s, when the empire landed in his lap. Musa spent his first years as Mansa, preparing for the greatest Hajj the world has ever seen. Historians believe he spent years orchestrating every golden-laden, camel-heavy, jaw-dropping detail. In preparation for his extravagant Hajj, Musa did something that would have made most religious clerics turn away in shame. He orchestrated slave raids in neighboring regions. Historian Michael Gomez estimates Mali captured over 6,000 slaves annually, many of whom would join the Mansa's massive entourage on the road to Mecca. In his early reign, slave raids weren't enough to satisfy Musa. He wanted to conquer new lands. In 1324, while in Cairo, he casually claimed to have conquered 24 cities. These brutal campaigns were largely against non-Muslim societies, suggesting Musa framed them as religiously motivated. It was all for the gilded glory of the Mali Empire. Under Musa's rule, the Mali Empire reached its zenith, stretching across the Sudan-Sahel region. With its staggering reach, the empire dominated gold routes, cultural centers, and trade outposts, giving Musa direct control over the immeasurable resources and wealth of West Africa. But he still hadn't satisfied his thirst for more wealth yet. When Musa took the throne, The Mali Empire had already subsumed much of the old Ghana Empire. His domain covered what we now called Mali, Guinea, Senegal, Mauritania, the Gambia, and more. A massive swath of gold-rich terrain. However, his acts of conquest may have started at home. According to the Tariq Alpha, Musa didn't just have the blood of his enemies on his hands. He may have accidentally ended his own mother's life. While the details of the event are murky at best, the incident, whatever it was, didn't put a dampener on Musa's much-anticipated Hajj. A devout Muslim, Musa had spared no expense in preparing for his Hajj, his sacred journey to Mecca. While the Muslims make the humble journey with what little they have, Musa turned the mandatory adventure into a continent-spanning spectacle. The journey catapulted his fame across North Africa and the Middle East, where tales of his generosity and gold spread like wildfire. To Musa, the Islamic world wasn't just a spiritual community. It was a cosmopolitan club of wealth, learning, and influence. And he wanted in. In embracing Islam, he sought not only salvation, but a seat at the cultural table of the Eastern Mediterranean. But he couldn't exactly abandon his empire. Before setting off on his glittering trek to Mecca, Musa made a practical move. He left his son Muhammad in charge of Mali, but while the empire was in good hands, Musa's attention was focused on showing the world what Malian gold could buy, namely everything. Between 1324 and 1325, he traveled over 2,700 miles across Africa's deserts and cities. Musa's Hajj looked more like a traveling empire than a group of wanderers. His caravan included more than 12,000 slaves dressed in brocade and Yemeni silk. Each one of them reportedly carried 4 lb of solid gold bars. It's a good thing Musa didn't have to pay for overnight baggage. He was traveling with literal tons of gold. According to some estimates, he may have carried up to 18 tons of it during his journey to Mecca. In today's money, that's over 1.3 billion just casually riding on camels across the desert. All of that gold wasn't just so Musa could show off his fabulous wealth. It also showed off his generosity. Musa personally supplied food and provisions for his entire entourage, including men, slaves, and animals. Every meal was on Musa. All along his Hajj, he gave gold and other riches to the poor with legendary generosity. Turns out you can buy a lot of goodwill with more than $1 billion in gold. In cities like Cairo and Medina, he splurged lavishly on souvenir shopping, picking up everything he could get his hands on. His extravagant spending sprees would come back to haunt him and entire economies. When he wasn't busy giving away gold or spending it on trinkets, Musa was honoring the gods. According to legend, he built a mosque every single Friday during his journey. Whether true or extravagant, it illustrates just how deeply he wanted to fuse faith with fortune. When Musa's caravan reached Cairo in July of 1324, they camped for 3 full days beside the pyramids of Giza. Then on July 19th, they crossed the Nile, and Cairo would never forget it. Once inside the city, Musa behaved like something of a Turan. When he met Mamluk, Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad, the Sultan expected him to bow. However, Musa, proud and devout, initially refused. After all, why should he bow to someone whose kingdom he could conquer 100 times over? Eventually, Musa realized that he was disrespecting his host and changed his tack. After some tense moments, Musa bowed before the Sultan. But he wanted to be clear about one thing. He was actually bowing before God and God alone. That seemed to smooth things over for the time being. While in Cairo, Musa hobnobbed with the city's elites. He stayed in the Coiffure district and struck up a friendship with the local governor, Ibn Amir Hajib. The two reportedly spent hours in deep conversation with Musa, regaling the governor about his homeland before the desert, and how laden with riches he was. His time in Cairo became the stuff of myth. Even after leaving Cairo, Musa didn't put his wallet away. In the final leg of his journey, on his way to Mecca, he continued his philanthropic spree, giving generously to the people of Medina and his fellow pilgrims. Whether it was PR or piety, Musa knew how to leave a lasting impression. He believed there was enough wealth to go around. While visiting the holiest site in Islam, the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, Musa's caravan nearly caused a holy fight to break out. Tensions flared between his men and a group of Turkic pilgrims, with both sides drawing their swords. Luckily, Musa stepped in and diffused the conflict before it turned bloody, but he wasn't out of danger yet. After the Hajj ended, Musa lingered in Mecca longer than most others. But when he finally began the journey home, disaster struck. Traveling separately from the official caravan, Musa and his entourage faced a gauntlet of hardships that nearly destroyed them. Gold couldn't protect him from everything. By the time the weary travelers reached Suez, many of Musa's men had succumbed to colds, starvation, or bandit raids. The once glorious caravan was now a shadow of its former self. The worst part, however, was that Musa had at last run out of gold. Broke and battered from travel, Musa had to borrow gold from lenders at exorbitant rates and resell trinkets he picked up earlier on his trip just to stay afloat. Merchants like Siraj Alden bailed him out, but even the Sultan of Egypt had to step in with some gilded charity of his own. Some sources say that Musa refused to pay back his creditors once he returned home. Other historians claimed that he paid them back, but only partially, back home and reunited with the rest of his inexhaustible fortune. Musa channeled his wealth into construction. He funded countless mosques and madrasas across Mali, including the iconic Sanor Madras in Timbuktu. But these buildings were more than an extravagant display of wealth. They reshaped the region. During Musa's reign, he made it rain in Mali. Thanks to his investments, urban life flourished across the Mali Empire. According to scholar Sergio Domian, the region transformed from a desert, albeit a rich one, to a vibrant civilization with at least 400 cities dotting the Niger Delta alone. Gold paved the streets and the foundations. Throughout his Hajj, Musa hadn't shown off his wealth. He had mythologized it. He reportedly spread tales that gold grew like plants in Mali. The rumor made his empire sound like a fairy tale and ensured that his fame spread far beyond the Sahara, to attract merchants from all over the world. All that so he could make more money. Musa's inestimable fortune came in large part from taxing the lifeblood of West African trade. Throughout his reign, Mali controlled much of the known world's gold, salt, and copper production and trade. Musa taxed every nugget and ingot, building a fortune 1 ounce of gold at a time, but it did take some time. While it's hard to get an exact idea of how quickly Musa had built up his fortune, there is some evidence that it didn't happen overnight. During his Hajj, Musa reportedly spent years' worth of his fortune, suggesting the richest man alive had been dipping into his savings more deeply than anyone knew. Still, he had more than enough money for a lifetime or several. It's just that the money came with devastating consequences. Musa's generosity and extravagant spending sprees in Egypt were so extreme they reportedly tanked the local economy. One source claims that Musa dropped so much cash in Cairo that the value of gold in the city cratered for over a decade. There was, however, another explanation for the inflation. While many accounts say Musa's giving spree wrecked the Egyptian economy, some historians like Warren Schultz aren't so sure. According to him, the shift in gold's value wasn't that unusual for the time or region of the world. Regardless, Musa left a yellow brick road on his journey to Mecca. And by yellow bricks, we mean gold bars. Just like his bank balance, no one knows exactly when Mansa Musa met his end. Using calculations based on Ibn Khaldun's chronology, historians suggest he passed in 1332. But like much about his life, The exact timing is veiled in the sands of history and obscured by the blinding glare of gold in the Mali sunlight. A conflicting account places Musa alive in 1337, when he reportedly sent congratulations to Abu al-Hasan Ali for a great battle of victory. By the time the response came, most historians agree Musa had passed on, and his brother Sulayman had taken the throne and presumably his diminished fortune. Another theory from the historian Al-Amari suggests Musa didn't live to see 1332 at all, far less 1337. He claimed Musa had hoped to abdicate his throne, give up his fortune, or at least most of it, and retire in Mecca. However, tragically, according to this account, Musa passed before making the journey back, implying he didn't live long past his return from the Hajj. Despite the lack of clarity and official records, contemporary Arab scholars heap near unanimous praise for Mansa Musa. They aren't just dazzled by his riches, but by his character too. Ibn Battuta and others praised his wisdom and generosity, while Nen Khaldan hailed him as an upright man and a great king. He didn't even have to bribe them to say that. So how rich was Mansa Musa exactly? Time magazine put it best when they wrote, "There is really no way to put an accurate number on his wealth. With a legacy that still lives on today in the Gingerbread Mosque and the University of Sanor, perhaps his fortune truly is beyond measure." Thanks for watching History Expose. If you love uncovering the best stories in history, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring with us. Don't forget to visit our main page, Factinate, for more incredible facts about